This is Kelly from Watch the Obsession. Thanks for taking time to watch this video. Please click like and subscribe and hit the bell for future notifications. On this channel, I haven't talked about the Idaho 4 case or the case against Bryan Kohberger in a while, and I also haven't shared with you anything that our two friends from the University of Idaho, who are Ethan Chapin's fraternity brothers and close friends with Ethan Chapin, have had to say about what is going on in this case or what's going on in Idaho. Hasn't happened in a while. I've been intentionally just staying away from it because I'm trying my damnedest not to get involved in sensationalizing an already completely outrageous, horrific, sensational case. It just so happens that in the past few days, some things have come up regarding this case that could really use the insight and perspective of two of the only people inside the University of Idaho community who have shared their opinion on anything that has to do with this case or what happened on that terrible evening going into the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. Their perspective really, in my opinion, is most important, and I'm happy that we can provide you that perspective on this channel every now and then. Seems like the perfect time to drop this video. A little scuttlebutt about a certain YouTube channel, true crime YouTube channel, came to my attention. The current soft news about the Idaho 4 case and some controversy with this true crime channel really grabbed the attention of the two guys from the University of Idaho. So we're going to bring that content creator unwillingly into this conversation in this video. And y'all should know that I do have love for this creator. It's just, I don't know, guys. Should we tell them who that YouTube channel creator is?
And who is it? It's Harsh.
In case you don't know him, his channel's name is Harsh Reality, and he's referred to as Harsh. And, you know, I was just telling live stream audience very recently that for a while I was watching his channel and his discussions on the Idaho case almost every single day. And I don't watch YouTube all that much. Now, it might be because he puts out a couple videos every day, and some people like that, and some people think they might be overdoing it a little bit. But you know what? Overall, I support Harsh Reality, and I think you should go and check out his channel and decide for yourself if you like his style.
That's it, that foreigner from over the river, that big river. Foreigner. Anyway.
If you're wondering why Harsh is scoffing about being a foreigner, let me give you some answers here.
Would appear that Alpha Dog has appeared on News Nation and talking about obviously the destruction of 1122 King Road.
Harsh Reality is referring to Steve Goncalves when he says Alpha Dog. And yes, it's true that Steve Goncalves just the other day made another appearance on our girl, Ashley Banfield's news program, and we'll take a look at that too. Well, actually, Harsh has taken a look at that too, and we're going to just listen to what he had to say about it. And spoiler alert, he's not happy about that at all. Now, I'm predicting that there's going to be a little more discontent in Harsh Reality's near future when he hears what the two students from the University of Idaho have to say about his unhappiness with the Goncalves Banfield interview. But we'll see. Maybe it'll help everyone come to a better understanding of the perspective of those who are actually at the University of Idaho and why they are going about things the way that they are. Now, additionally, it has been announced that the demolition of the 1122 King Road residence in Moscow, Idaho, has been set for December 28th, 2023, just a short time from now. And we all have some very strong opinions on that decision. And my two guys, Harsh and myself, are going to hash it out for you here. Please leave a comment because I want to know very badly what you think about this one. And I'm going to have to set Harsh straight on the issue of the PCA and his thoughts about that, because I think he is a little misled on that particular topic, which also, of course, leads into the importance of demolitioning the house or not.
4 case, it could be cut and dry. But what I will say is, I've not seen enough for me to say, do you know what, this is cut and dry. There's a lot missing, a lot of holes. And a lot of us believe that the PCA contained pretty much everything they had. They just tried to embellish. They had to try and make it look like it was a lot more than what it truly was.
Oy, oy, oy. Ugh, Harsh. One thing at a time, though. So what happened most recently between Harsh Reality and Steve Goncalves is actually a matter I don't have firsthand knowledge of. Some of you know that last week was a very difficult week for me. My father unexpectedly passed away, and it was very tragic, and I'm going to miss him very dearly. So, I didn't do much. I definitely didn't watch YouTube. And so I am going to rely on a creator that I trust her to tell a story as it is, to tell us exactly what happened. And that is the creator of Titanium Built, Tanya. Hey, thanks, Tanya. Here she is.
Okay, so far he's saying that him and Jules, of all trades, have been harassed. He's saying the harassment is somebody posted a picture of him and his family. You can go onto his Twitter, onto his community tab, and you can see pictures of Harsh's family. He posts them himself. So I'm kind of confused on that. He's wondering why people are so bent out of shape about him spewing conspiracies through the Idaho 4 case. If they don't care, why watch it, he's saying. He's saying that Steve reached out to him and that Steve was saying that they were receiving death threats. Making it almost seem like there was two suspects. Wow, this is baloney. He's saying that all of his speculation and conspiracies are probably true, and that's why he's receiving these death threats.
So I've noticed that video has been removed from Harsh Reality's channel. And I want you to hear what Harsh himself had to say about why he contacted Steve Goncalves.
And you could say that the situation around the Goncalves family has caused a lot of confusion because, rightfully or wrongfully, I reached out to Steve Goncalves, and I did so because I thought to myself, Steve Goncalves is out in the public domain. He's out. He's speaking to everyone. He's on Facebook. He's on this. He goes on this channel, that channel, and he seems to be someone who's quite approachable. And we've received threats. Do you know what I mean? I thought, I'm going to approach this guy. He's got the opportunity where he can either respond or not. Maybe he won't, and I'm not going to chase a guy up. Do you know what I mean? I just sent one message saying exactly who I was as well. I am who I am. And he came to me, and then I shared a conversation, again, rightfully or wrongfully. For those of you who have been around the channel long enough, there was no monetary benefit to me. I didn't look at it from a monetary benefit. I saw it as an information benefit in terms of maybe you turn around and shed a bit of light on the subject. But he said something that I thought the community as a whole should hear. They should hear this. And then things got a little bit jaded.
If you know what it is that Steve said to Harsh, supposedly, that the community ought to hear, please leave a comment down below, because that is a mystery, a riddle, an enigma, much like Russia, as far as I'm concerned, because I didn't watch the video before he deleted it. So I'm not exactly sure what the controversial point is about specifically. But let's talk about threats. That on this channel, myself and the two guys that I've been talking to at the University of Idaho for quite a while have received very serious threats. And I mentioned it once or twice in passing during a live stream, and it definitely does happen, and it can get very scary. What we did was to get in touch with local law enforcement and our attorneys to handle it. My first thought was not to contact Steve Goncalves, and I do suggest if anyone is receiving threats that you should contact law enforcement for sure and protect yourself, please. Back to the foreigner and Alpha Dog, as Harsh refers to each of them. What happened between Harsh and Steve was between them, and I don't know all of the details, to be honest. I'm not sure if anybody knows all of the details except for the two of them, but it resulted in this post from Steve Goncalves on his family's Facebook page. That post says, I wanted to address a YouTube video brought to my attention today by a foreign creator who claimed to have received, quote, death threats, unquote, due to his content. While I initially tried to be helpful, it seems his claims may have been a ploy for attention. We support all the victims associated with the 1122 King Road residents. We have been threatened, but not by any of our girls' college friends. Individuals like this grifter tarnish the reputation of honest YouTubers, and their manipulative attempts to exploit victims' families should be condemned. Despite our family's stance against baseless content, he turned vague words around to create controversy. Twisting victims against themselves is unacceptable, and we want to be clear, we stand with all of the victims of this case. You are all forming your opinion of, what you think, what went down, and your opinion is completely valid. I would love to hear what you think, and I'm just telling you what's going on in this regard. Now, what I want to tell you next is the response that our two friends from the University of Idaho, who are close friends of the victims, had to say about this whole conundrum here, this little social news explosion that happened over the last week when I was mourning the loss of my father and not really tuning in. Interestingly enough, they caught me up on all of this because they were tuned into it. I think because this is the kind of thing that opens up wounds for them and maybe even, triggers them. And I'm sure other people just a little bit. I had to talk to them because my dad was the first person who spoke to all of us together and advised us in, the legal matters of them speaking out directly or through me or on my channel, given the very strict and broad gag order and times when we have gone silent. It is often because my dad advised that we do so, given what was going on. However, I do want you to know that everybody has attorneys that are not family members. I do representing the channel, not very active. We don't get into too much legal stuff here on the channel, but it is a safety measure. And the two guys from Idaho do have attorneys, an attorney, on retainer, who's awesome. And my dad helped find this attorney for them. So that's how I got talking to them about everything that's going on. So this is what they had to say, my friends. Like we have stood by the Chapin family in the past, and we will always stand by the Chapin family, we also stand by and support the Goncalves family all the time. We always have, and we always will. We in this community have chosen to stick together and to stand against outside forces, outside pressure, and outside evil that might break the bond that is so necessary for all of us who are healing, because the tragedy happened right here in our home, or to our friends, or to our family members. The reason we eventually felt as though we absolutely had to speak out in some way, shape, or form was when that awful woman, that fraud who called herself WSU Kim, was appearing on certain channels, sometime telling the most ridiculous lies about what happened that were extremely hurtful to the Chapin family, to all of our friends, to all of the families, and to the victims' memories. For the sake of efficiency, I'm going to paraphrase the rest of the statement. He goes on to say the end result of what WSU Kim did and what Harsh Reality's channel is currently doing are very similar as far as negative impact on the friends and family members, the people close to the victims. He did point out that what he's saying about Harsh Reality's channel in this statement could apply to a number of YouTube channels or different platforms across social media. It just so happens that we are talking about Harsh Reality right now, so I want you guys to all know that. Points out that not only did WSU Kim lie and cause a lot of confusion among people who are truly interested in this case and truly have compassion for the victims and would like to see justice, the worst thing that she did in the eyes of the friends and family members, particularly these guys, the fraternity brothers, the students who were in the area of 1122 King Road that day, and the Chapins, who were deeply hurt by what he's about to explain, is to imply that the students in the area, particularly these guys that I'm talking to, Hunter Chapin and some other students who were right in that immediate area of 1122 King Road that morning, who also knew one or probably more of the victims very well, that they didn't do anything when they found out hours before 911 was called about the tragedy, which, by the way, is categorically false. We've explained that in a couple other videos, and I'm going to put a link in the description to one of them if you're curious how we know that is a lie. It goes on to explain that while harsh reality didn't produce one big event or one big train wreck like WSU Kim, going on YouTube every day, sometimes twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day, and talking about this case and putting out ideas that are clearly fictional, in his opinion, asking his loyal viewership to defy all logic and rational thinking, to basically ignore the evidence that we already do know about. And I do agree, there is significant evidence that we do know about right now. And to then put forth all these outlandish, baseless theories that implicate other people in committing this horrible, unthinkable crime. It's just as bad as what WSU Kim did, and maybe even worse, because time and time again, every day, sometimes twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day, he's delivering a similar message to his viewership and, maybe solidifying that idea in the minds of the people who are watching his videos. He is aware of how Harsh Reality and other channels have talked about the members of the fraternity, for one, and that they say things often that imply that all or some of them were in cahoots and knew what happened and are covering it up, or on the worst end of the spectrum, some of them were involved in what happened, meaning that these guys, these fraternity brothers, these students were the ones who committed that atrocious crime. For what reason? They don't really understand, because he says that on several different occasions, this channel and others have given different reasons why in the world anyone in that fraternity would be involved in this horrible crime. Now I'm going to read a little part from the statement that he wrote. He said, "I hope you know how ignorant you sound when you are posing the question to your viewers, why are the students at the University of Idaho so quiet? Why have we not heard anything from them? Isn't that strange? Why haven't we heard anything from the Sigma Chi guys? Isn't that strange?"
But there are people who are questioning why nobody is talking, why nobody is saying anything. Nobody. It's just blanket silence. And what doesn't sit right with me is this. If this was done by an outsider, you've got this guy, Brian Koberger, right, comes in from Washington over into Idaho like a stranger in the night, coming into this area and fucking up our shit. Why is nobody talking about it? The fact nobody's talking about it, no one's coming forward. You're not hearing people on the screen and even voicing their opinions about Brian Koberger. Outrage. Absolute outrage. On the streets, I can't understand it. I genuinely can't understand it. There seems to be too much quiet.
And then you go on to make some statements that clearly imply that you believe we have some guilt in this awful crime.
And what doesn't sit right with me is this. If this was done by an outsider...
Kelly has already provided the answers to your questions through her content. And I'm sorry if it's inconvenient for you to learn that the University of Idaho students and other members of the community decided long ago that we were going to stick together and be as one, speak as one on behalf of our friends. The impact of this event was devastating. We needed each other to get through, and we still do. Our fraternity and the university community decided that we needed to come together so we could be strong as we stood against evil. Never did I think that we would also have to stand against evil in the form of, well, channels like yours. He goes on to talk about how the gag order sucks, and he wants people to remember that while they are standing together, they have to stand together silently, because after all, first of all, there's a lot of confusion about the gag order, and I've told this before on the channel. People didn't know, did it apply to me? Does that mean we can't talk about the case, altogether? Does that mean just certain people can't? There was a lot of confusion, and there still is. But also, now that the trial is going to be sometime in the future and an indefinite date, we don't know how far down the road it's going to be. These students, these kids, and anybody who is close to the case does not know if they are going to be called as a witness. The short list isn't even out. The list is definitely not finalized, and anybody who is in that community could possibly be called as a witness in the trial against Bryan Kohberger. They take their responsibility to help the process of justice for their friends very seriously, and I'm sure that they take the possible repercussions of not following that gag order very seriously as well. He says it gives the dirtbags of the world free license to make up BS and run with it anytime they would like. And then when a good person like Steve Goncalves says the smallest thing that allows you to create more lies about this case, put words in his mouth, and convince people that he was saying something that maybe he is saying or maybe he's not saying, we don't know. You beat up on the poor guy. And he feels that other people, as well as Harsh, are currently just mad at Steve Goncalves because Steve somehow exposed them for being what they really are, and he uses his own. Now, he tried to very carefully say, without saying too much, and he did a good job of that people who are close to that case, so, two guys I'm talking to, the students, some of them, the family members, that they know the rigor with which this case was investigated in this way, the number of people that were interviewed, the length of time they were interviewed, the number of times they were interviewed, and the relationship that they had to the victims or anything that was potentially having to do with this crime. He and I have talked about this many times before, and same with his friend that I talked to as well. And they have told me their experience, their personal experience, and what they know about the experience of many of their friends having to do with being part of the investigation. He also said that as time has gone on and people aren't necessarily being called for questioning anymore, there is information that gets to them that the average public person does not know, and he speculates that perhaps that is why this gag order is in place.
Steve Goncalves is saying that he's had someone tell him that he has nothing to worry about. This guy's done. It's over. And, we know it's in your nature to be the way that you are, and we get that. We understand that. But it's a done deal, son. It's a done deal. And not only that, but there is other information being collected on other people. It's all other people being looked at. It's other stuff. So who the fuck's leaking that then? Who is it? Another creator maybe.
He also points out that this, high level information that might be found out by people close to the case is likely going to be held sacred by them because they care so much about the family member or the friend that they lost. And to keep that information under wraps is what very well may help ensure that justice is found for their loved ones.
Look, what really sort of triggered me, if you like, was Steve Goncalves turning around very clearly in that interview, and this is going to be something that cannot be backpedaled from. This is to say, you heard it at the beginning of this video, and that is that he had been specifically told, and that statement, we've got what we've got on him, you know, and I thought, who would be able to say that? Who could make any difference? Do you know what I mean? He didn't say what they've got.
Words to say all of that. So, oh my gosh, lots of strong emotions, guys. And, you know, as soon as people can talk about what their experience was and talk about something having to do with this case, all of the people that cannot talk under penalty of law right now, or feel or believe that they can't talk for moral, ethical reasons, or they're not sure if the law applies to them, you're going to be hearing stories that echo the sentiments of this student in front of Ethan Chapin all over the place. I'm 100% certain of that. Something that he pointed out early in his statement that I'm talking about out of order is that he feels that harsh reality and, you know, again, others are included when he says harsh reality. We already put out that disclaimer that he did feel strongly about. I do want to be fair about that, and I do want to make that known, that when, you know, talking about this case and talking about the legal aspects of it and Bryan Kohberger's innocent or guilt, that oftentimes the legal definitions that he puts out there, the way that he is talking about the law, is not accurate. So listen, I have been wrong before. I will be wrong again. And what I'm about to say, I know I'm not wrong about because I've absolutely fact checked it. But a lot of times I'll say, and I could be wrong now. So I'm not trying to like dog on anybody, but I do think that my friend makes an important point. So I want to show you a couple examples and you can draw your own conclusions.
All of the information has come out, and you can genuinely look at everything and think, do you know what? This guy did this, and there is no way that he couldn't have done it. That's beyond reasonable doubt. Maybe people have been fact over the fucking head, and they don't understand what reasonable doubt means.
So what is the real definition of reasonable doubt? Reasonable doubt exists when a fact finder cannot say with moral certainty that a person is guilty. And beyond a reasonable doubt means that the fact finder can say with moral certainty that a person is guilty. That, my friends, is reasonable doubt. As it pertains to this case, reasonable doubt is not.
This guy did this, and there is no way that he couldn't have done it. That's beyond reasonable doubt.
What that would be, what Harsh just described there, would be beyond certain doubt. And that is not a standard in any court of law in the United States.
I don't understand it, because people will still turn around and they'll say the PCA, they only had to put a certain amount of stuff in the PCA to get the arrest. Bollocks is what I say to that. If something comes up that is going to annihilate that and just say, look, he definitely did it, check this out. They've got a picture or a camera of Bryan Kohberger walking into the house like this with a knife sheath in one hand and the knife walking in there. Like, that's beyond reasonable doubt.
Doubling down on something does not make it so. And again, that is not beyond reasonable doubt. That is beyond certain doubt. And if that was the standard of proof in our courts of law, that you needed something like that Harsh just described, well, our justice system simply would fail.
That the PCA contained pretty much everything they had. They just tried to embellish. They had to try and make it look like it was a lot more than what it truly was.
Before we begin to parse this one, let's take a look at what is a probable cause affidavit used for, what's its purpose, and what exactly is probable cause. In criminal law, probable cause is a legal standard in which law enforcement officers have reasonable grounds or suspicion to believe that an individual has committed a crime or is going to commit a crime. It is followed by obtaining an arrest warrant, conducting property and personal search, and seizing property relating to the suspected crime. Legal cause to seize property, search, or arrest exists when the circumstances brought forward by an officer would lead to reasonable suspicion. In other words, probable cause means that a reasonable person, that's the standard, would believe that a crime was in the process of being committed, had been committed, or was going to be committed. It's a very low standard as far as criminal law goes. It's very different than the standards that are used in trial when a jury is weighing evidence to determine if one who's been charged is guilty or not. Probable cause to arrest goes like this. In order to arrest a suspect, an officer must have good faith belief that a crime has been committed and the individual he is arresting committed that crime. So that's where you get into detailing some of the evidence or the information that caused law enforcement to connect an individual to a crime committed in the probable cause affidavit.
I don't understand it, because people will still turn around and they'll say the PCA, they only had to put a certain amount of stuff in the PCA to get the arrest. Bollocks is what I say to that.
The probable cause affidavit is exclusively for the purpose of obtaining a warrant for an arrest or search and seizure of property. The justice system has phases, and after the investigation, the first phase of resolving a crime, of apprehending the suspect so they are no longer a danger to society and the process of justice can begin, is actually arresting them. But it is well understood that justice is a process, and it is well understood that oftentimes justice is a lengthy process. And when the PCA is authored, it is not to lose sight of the fact that whatever crime is being charged may eventually be tried at court, may eventually go to a trial when a fact-finding exercise happens and the person is determined to be innocent or guilty. A perfect probable cause affidavit will contain only the relevant facts that causes a judge to sign an arrest warrant so the suspect can be apprehended, but absolutely nothing additional. To include everything but the kitchen sink and a probable cause affidavit would be to show all of your cards, and it would cause the prosecution to be at a great disadvantage of actually being able to prosecute any criminal. It would be stupid to do.
They proved in that PCA, and if you genuinely took the time to read the PCA, not just take other people's word for it who are pushing the guilt train, you would understand what we're saying. Because you'll get people who watch video, they'll watch 3 minutes of a 20-minute video and think they know the entire context.
Uh-oh, Harsh. When I heard that, I kind of laughed to myself, and I remembered this.
Now, there's a link to What's the Obsession's video down below in description. So if you haven't seen it, go and check it out. I must warn you, as Jules also very eloquently put, the video is a lot longer than perhaps it needs to be. That's all I will say. And in fact, the video that was kind of a teaser to this video was probably as long as it really needed to be. But
now I have to say that I thought Harsh was very gracious about my video and giving me credit for the video and sending people over to my channel, and I appreciated that, and I absolutely still do. Some channels played that entire video that I put out, which had exclusive information in it, without really doing everything that Harsh did. So I thank him for that. And you know, I couldn't help but thinking about that statement that he made about my video when I heard him say the other thing about people not watching the whole video, because I intentionally included everything I did in that video that he's referring to, because it gave the new information that I learned from the guys some context, and I really wanted people to understand what it is I was talking about. So jab, jab, that's all I'm saying.
that PCA was nothing more than embellishments. They went and on some sort of stupid fucking ramble about what he was doing the following day. Went to fucking coffee shops or drove around here, there, and every. Do you know what I mean?
Now, this goes to the point of why it's important to read everything carefully and, vet through it and understand it carefully. Now, I made a video on why that portion of the PCA that Harsh is referring to and calling it a stupid ramble was so important. And that is because that part of the PCA connected Brian Koberger to his car, to his phone, at the same time, linking all of those things together, which really brought together the evidence that they had against him in a very nice, neatly tied package with a great big Christmas bow right on top. So now let's get to the topic that we all agree about, myself and Harsh and the two guys from the University of Idaho, and that is the pending demolition of 1122 King Road that's scheduled to happen in just a few days on December 28th, 2023.
So Steve Goncalves is talking about the destruction of the house, and I have to fully agree with his thoughts on the house. Do you know what I mean? I feel that it is indeed fighting a losing battle. There's nothing you can do. Sadly, it's reality that the only people who are really pissed off about the house still standing are those that are destined to potentially lose some wedge, or in their eyes, it's a risk, a possibility that they'll lose some wedge.
Now, our two friends from the University of Idaho completely agree with Harsh's thoughts on that, and I share that same opinion. As I said, that demolitioning the house right now is an absolutely stupid idea, evidenced by the fact that both the prosecution and the defense have been scrambling to get in that house since they learned the demolition date was set for December 28th, 2023. I think that shows us that there is evidentiary value to that house still standing, so whatever may come up in the trial can refer to the actual space in which the crime was committed. Furthermore, the two guys that I spoke to told me that their sentiment is shared around the campus, that yes, people do see that house as a reminder of something terrible that happened, but what is more important to them, and they believe that all of their friends and many of the students at the University of Idaho feel the same way, is that justice is found for those victims. And if that means they have to look at that ugly ass gray house for another year or two, or however long it may be, they are completely willing to do that. On that point, we definitely all agree. So that's what those guys had to say about some of the issues that are at hand with the Idaho 4 case right now. And again, please remember that, bringing Harsh into this, my opinion and their opinion of some of the things he said is the same in many ways, and our overall opinion maybe of the creator is a little different, and I definitely do not mean any harm to Harsh. Again, I just want that to be known, and if you are not already a subscriber of his, I do suggest that you go check out his channel. He does have some good stuff. So thank you so much for watching. Please click like and subscribe. I hope to see you again soon, and may we find justice for the victims, Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana, and peace for their families.